I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social Security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I, as always, am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor, here to talk about classic television with fascinating people, using back issues of TV Guide magazine from my personal collection as the inspiration for our conversation. I'm living with it. The rhyming, I can't think of any other way to state it, so it's just what it's going to be. It's what it needs to be. Anyway, speaking of writing, of which I am not an excellent writer, but my guest this week is Katya Apekina. She is a writer of Russian descent. Actually, she was from Russia. She moved here when she was 3. Grew up here in Boston. Has been living in LA for a really long time. Has an amazing new novel out called Mother Doll. It comes out this very week. It's funny and interesting and bittersweet and stuff. It's just really good. It's if you're familiar with the Will McRobb episode, it hits all the quadrants of funny, sad, strange, and beautiful. It manages to get all of those things into this novel, as did her last novel too, which you should also pick up. If you want to buy it signed, you can go to Skylight Books. I put a link in the show description here, but signed copies are only $28. Like, who can go wrong with that? Or if you're in LA, you can just go into Skylight Books on North Vermont Ave. Or if you're in the Boston area, next week on the 21st of March at 7 p.m., she'll be in Newtonville Books doing a reading and signing books, and you should go. I might go. I probably won't because I don't leave the house, but I might go. You might see me there. But again, I put all the info in the show description here, and definitely go at a minimum buy the book, but you should also go to the events and get a signed one if you can. That is always very helpful to writers. Or, if you have to get it on Amazon, get it on Amazon. But buy the book, buy it this week too, because if it comes out, if you buy it on release week, that is usually the best time to buy somebody's book and get it on the charts and help them out with some visibility. And she's great and she deserves it, and you will love the book. So everybody really wins here. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I guess I win because I got a great episode. So there you go. But anyway, speaking of great episodes, here it is. Here is this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Katya Apekina.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Although grew up here in Boston, is live via satellite from Los Angeles. Katya, how are you?
I'm great. It's rainy here, but I'm happy to be on here.
Yes, although you're missing the little bit of snow we get now because of the world is ending and we don't get as much snow.
That's true. I wouldn't be surprised if we got some snow out here with the way things are going.
I remember, this is my old man weather talk, but I remember a couple years ago, I think Texas got more snow than we did here. And living here my whole life, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's the apocalypse.
That's wild.
That is not normal. So I'm very excited to talk to you. We have a TV guide, so we'll get to that in a moment. But I love the new book, and it's relevant here, I think. And if this is total nonsense that I'm spouting here, just stop me. But I think it relates to what I'm talking about with the TV guides, and this will make sense, I swear. In that, your really brilliant use of multiple narratives that are all sort of happening at the same time reminds me of the fact that we sort of have everything available to us now that previous generations never had, as far as history, stories, any kind of stories you want, other people's stories. You can track down your interests, or you can do all these things. But in some regards, it feels really isolated. And I'm picking up a lot of, like in the 2 books, displacement and people who are sort of spread out from their families, either through time or space, even though we can easily contact people. So that's another strange thing I'm noticing. And because I'm me and I think of everything as television, the medium in the new book reminded me of almost like TV. Like your character has to get her personal story through an unrelated third party.
That's so interesting.
I might be totally off base with that.
I think that's really interesting. I do think, yeah, both my books, people are trying to communicate. And it's true that, like, as we have more and more means of communicating with people, we also become more and more separated somehow from them and unable to communicate. Even though we have, you know, increasingly more technology to do so, we feel more isolated somehow. So I think that's true. That's definitely a theme.
Because the thing I always talk about on this show is those of us that grew up pre-millennium, and I think we're of a similar-ish age, we have the shared experience of television is the example that I always use, where we all experience the same stuff. We watch the same stuff and we can all talk about that. Like that's a fictional experience to a third party that we all have in common. Whereas things seem a little bit not as like untethered now.
That's true. Yeah. It's like a shared language or something. And now, it's so spread out and there's so many more like little pockets. There isn't like a unified sort of culture in the same way. That's true. So
you were born in Russia, right? And you moved to Boston when you were like three or four?
Yeah, that's right. 3.5.
So, do you still speak Russian?
I do still speak Russian. I don't speak it very well or very often. I speak it with my family. My family's still in Boston. I have a daughter, and I was like, I should teach her Russian. But then, my partner doesn't speak Russian, and like she had no interest in learning another language. And so I think it's so admirable when people, can do it. But like it takes this commitment of like being like, I'm the parent that only speaks to you in Russian. And I just didn't do that. And so anyway, there's a lot of guilt there. But yeah, I can speak Russian. I do feel like people tell me I have like a strong Moscow accent, which is really funny because like I left when I was 3,
Right. But the people you were around all had that accent, I imagine. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's where I learned Russian, and like all the slang and stuff that I know from Russian is like from the 1970s or whatever, like that my parents were using. So I feel like I speak kind of like a weird little time capsule dated Russian. But yeah, I do speak it. And I also have done like translations, but I've translated from Russian to English. I don't think my Russian would be good enough to do like literary translations in the other direction.
I'm now picturing when you speak Russian using like phrases like the Russian equivalent of like, what it is, groovy. Like whatever.
Totally. That's like... exactly. Yeah, that's like the exact equivalent.
Is there any sort of Russian media that you would watch growing up, like or with your family or anything like that? There wasn't a ton of it over here.
So Cheburashka is this like cartoon, sort of claymation cartoon of this little, I don't know, he's like somewhere between a mouse and a teddy bear. And it's like the stories of his exploits. His best friend is a crocodile who plays an accordion. And there's this like mean old lady that they named Shapaklyak, I think, who they're like always escaping from. So I think that those like that cartoon, but otherwise, no, like I didn't really watch I wasn't allowed to watch TV growing up. So it was like this forbidden and very like exciting thing for me. So like whenever I would go to my grandmother's house, I would like watch a lot of TV because I could. And like I was allowed to watch like when I was little PBS, specifically just I think Sesame Street really was the only thing I was allowed to watch. And that's how I learned English, But other than that, my parents would like touch the TV and see if it was,
warm.
Yeah, to know whether I had watched TV or not. Because I was like, I was very, they were very strict about it.
Was there issue with it that it was just like junk foody stuff, or was they like were they big like read a book? Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like for any sort of like that it would like expose me to like something forbidden. It was more just like a high culture, low culture thing. And like, yeah, that it's like junk food, that they wanted me to like, I mean, I was like literally reading like War and Peace and stuff in like elementary school.
Fun stuff.
And like,
kid stuff.
yeah, I would like skip all the war parts and only read Peace. I remember in 6th grade. But yeah, so they were like kind of strict about it.
You just made me think it'd be funny if someone put out a Peace edition of War and Peace, like separated them. So you'd have 2 volumes. It's like a McDLT.
I would have preferred it.
So did you feel when you were a kid, you know, and you're going to school in Boston and, you know, although we did have a large Russian expat sort of community in like Brookline and Allston, if memory serves. But did you feel like you were missing out on sort of a cultural thing or something like something you could talk to the other kids about? Like, did it come up a lot that you hadn't seen stuff?
Kind of, yeah. Like I had my like Russian friends who I feel like were also like limited in like how much like pop culture they were allowed to consume. But then when I would like go to school, there weren't a ton of Russian kids at my school. And I did feel, yeah, like it was this thing that kind of held me separate, you know? It's like, it was like a key that would, you know, like TV and then also like music. It was like the thing that made you cool if you knew about it. And right. I like was not cool and did not know about it. But, you know, wished I was.
So you couldn't even listen to like WBCN or FNX?
Oh, I did listen to WBCN. Yeah, like by the time, I feel like by the time kind of middle school and high school rolled around, I was like doing all that stuff. But I think like in elementary school in particular, and I think like my parents were like a little less strict with TV then too. I mean, I definitely, like, it's funny because when I was figuring out, oh, what would I watch like every night? I mean, like, I just can't, like, I was allowed to watch like a show a week, you know, like the idea that I could like just watch every night. Like it was just like 2 hours. It was just like so many options, so many choices. It was very exciting to pick. Like I would watch sometimes late at night.
When they were asleep?
Yeah. There would be like these like these kind of proto dating shows that like I loved watching when when they were like asleep or I was at friends' houses or things like that. Like
Blind Date? Was that one of the ones?
There was one I loved called Elimidate.
Oh, yes, on MTV. Yeah.
I don't think it was on MTV. I feel like it had this thing that was like Elimidate. That was like their sort of, I don't know, the way they sounded. And I think it was definitely just like on just regular TV. It wasn't even on cable.
Because I think I'm thinking of Next on MTV, which was kind of the same
similar.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I only saw once. They had it on in a gym, which anyone who listens to the show hearing that I was in a gym at all will be shocking. But in Somerville, I was in a gym and they had that on, and I'm pretty liberal and hard to shock, but I was like, what is this? It was so like crude because it was just, you know, they'd have those little scripted intros and it was like, I need a guy who can handle me down there or something. It was like the weirdest. I was like, wait, what? They're not even trying to code anything. And I was very, very shocked. So I imagine Elimidate was probably like a classier version at Next.
Probably not that much classier. It was pretty shocking, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a rite of passage that children of this generation won't understand the sneaking television with your ear up to the speaker so you don't get caught watching something.
Totally.
I can watch whatever I want on my phone. I do remember, before we jump in, I am kind of a movie freak and definitely was in high school. And there was a Russian movie I was trying to find and I had to go to Allston and there was like some Russian, it was like a grocery store kind of, we sell everything little store. And they had like some videotapes and I could not pronounce the movie. It was based on a Gogol book. It's called like VIY or something. It's like a horror movie. And it was like pathetic, me trying to ask the guy for this movie. I got it, but it was like, that was my only experience with that. I was like, I don't know. Excellent movie.
I know exactly what video store you're talking about.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they were very nice, but I'm sure I looked completely bonkers trying to convey what I was looking for. So you had asked for an issue the week after this one that I could not put my hands on for some strange reason. And it had Party of Five on the cover. Was that why that particular one appealed to you?
Yes, I remember that was like a show I was allowed to watch. That was like the one show of the week that I would watch. And I was very invested in it.
Were you allowed to watch it because like your mom liked it? That seemed to be one of kids who had strict parents. I always noticed the show that was the exception. It was usually because their parent liked that show.
No, I think like the only shows that my parents watched would be like The Simpsons. Actually.
Oh, wow.
They were not into like soapy drama.
That was usually forbidden in most strict homes. Yeah, Party of Five, which I'm sure is on this week and we'll talk about it, which is a show no one really ever mentioned. Like, it's not beloved. It doesn't have a cult continuing audience. Like, people aren't binging Party of Five on Netflix, I've noticed. Like, it's Gilmore Girls. But what a bum out of a show. It was like parents die in a car crash, so the five kids have to run a restaurant or something, and like their alcoholic oldest brother was in charge.
I don't even remember, but yeah, his name was Charlie. That's like all I remember. I don't know that they had to run a restaurant, but that makes sense. That makes sense that I found him attractive.
Yeah, he's the one with the scruff.
Based on what you just said. Yeah.
But I remember being on a very popular. So I gave you the issue from the week before that has a very oiled up Kevin Sorbo on the cover, which it's a little much. But this is when Hercules was very, very popular, which I was surprised it was as popular enough to get on the cover. Like Xena, sure, but I didn't remember Hercules being this big.
I don't remember Hercules being big either.
And I've since had many an argument with Kevin Sorbo on Twitter. He started all of them. So jumping in here, like some of the articles, 97 is a pretty interesting year because I think we were sort of transitioning out of the early 90s stuff. It's just sort of finding its feet. A lot of shows that ended, a lot were starting. I'm not a huge Star Trek guy, but there's a huge article in here about the not Deep Space Nine, what's the one with Janeway, Voyager on here. And it's a very cool, like evil looking picture with a Borg behind her.
I'm looking for it right now. Is that with the pull quote about not liking things up her nose?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also like there's a tribute to the guy who played the Maytag Repairman who had just died. And then speaking of like weird, kind of inappropriate game shows, there's a big article, big scoop about how Jenny McCarthy is being replaced with Carmen Electra on Singled Out.
I remember Singled Out so well. It was like kind of one of the first MTV shows. And it was big.
It was huge. It was what made Jenny McCarthy. They were like, we hired her because she's a playmate, but hey, she's really funny. Let's give her a sketch show.
It's funny because I feel like I haven't heard anything about Jenny McCarthy other than she's like an anti-vaxxer, I think, right?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I know about her now.
She's married to Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh, really? Wasn't she married to
Jim Carrey, I think.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah, and I think her kids are with him. But I was, you might appreciate this. I was at the post office one day, and the post office workers were like mid-conversation when I walked in, and they were like, yeah, Jenny McCartney. Yeah, McCartney and Donnie Wahlberg. That's nice. Like they were having this conversation about how nice it was that they were together. And I was like, you don't have to wait on me yet. Please continue your conversation.
That's so Boston. What happened to Carmen Electra? Is she around? Does she have
She is very very active on OnlyFans.
Okay. I just assumed she was like married to a magician or something. Is that wrong?
She seems like the type. She's got like the magician's assistant kind of vibe.
Yeah, like all of those like how to date like advice from magicians. I feel like somehow she was always like on the edges of that.
She did date Dennis Rodman, and he was sort of like a magician he's like a magician of basketball. More like a wizard. He was like a basketball wizard. Which that reminds me, actually, the magic kind of has a big part in your latest book, and there's a whole thing of the Magic Castle and all that kind of stuff. It's a very specifically LA things are in this thing. I assume you've been to the Magic Castle, and that's something that interests you?
I have been to the Magic Castle. It's like a members only magic club in Los Angeles. And we went because a friend of a friend of a friend was a member, something like that. And it was definitely cool. It was a scene. I mean, I've never like had the patience to learn magic tricks, and like I just can't even imagine having the patience to learn magic tricks. But like it's fun. I mean, there were some magicians that were like so good with the sleight of hand and stuff where it really did just blow my mind, even though I knew I couldn't figure out how they did it basically. And it was very it was very impressive. I mean, even though I wouldn't ever like have the desire to learn how to trick people basically.
Yeah.
I do feel, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was fun to go.
It's a weird thing where it's a trick, but everyone involved is like consenting that they know it's a trick.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's weird because it's like, we're going to have fun and we're going to be very serious about it. You know, like it's kind of a weird energy to be like, this is very fun.
It's very have fun. There's a guy called the Amazing Randi, who there's a great documentary about, but he was a stage magician and he was basically went on this lifelong crusade for people to never use magic to con people. And so the beginning of his act, he'd come out and he'd be like, this evening I'm going to lie to you. Everything I say is going to be a lie. Like he would be very much like, and it was very interesting to me that you chose to set something at the Magic Castle and there's the big discussions about magic and then introduce essentially, you know, a real magical thing with the medium. And weirdly present it in a way that's much more normal than the magic is described. So it just kind of like you jump right into it. So you're just like, oh yeah, that's the thing. And you kind of move on and then it's just there.
Right. Yeah. I think like she's very critical of the main character, Zhenya, is critical of her husband because he's very like excited to be at the Magic Castle and like into all the tricks, but at the same time he's like trying to figure out how the tricks are being done or whatever and like trying to dismantle it. And she says something like very dismissive about it, about how he like really it's like a person who wishes that magic was real but like has no actual faith in it, you know?
Right.
But she's pretty harsh. I mean, I feel like isn't everybody at the Magic Castle like trying to figure out how it's being you know, how it works? I think that seems pretty reasonable response.
Yeah, I think that's the amazement level. I will also mention Magic Castle, only place I've ever had to wear someone else's pants.
What?
Because they have a strict dress code. And I was meeting a friend there and I had on like a nice shirt and a suit coat and I had like nice jeans on. Like I wasn't even thinking like I needed like suit pants. Like it just didn't occur to me. And I'm standing in line and a guy in a tuxedo comes up to me and he just kind of like motions for me to kind of bend down and he whispers in my ear. He's like, what are you about size 38 pants, something like that. And I'm like, yes. And then he comes back with pants. He's like, yeah, just go put these on. I had to wear borrowed
Yeah, that's
pants.
kind of what I mean. Like they're very serious about stuff. They believe in rules. And I guess it makes sense when you're a magician. You don't, you know, you have to like, you can't cut corners.
Yeah, it's all rules. With chaos, there's no magic in chaos.
Yeah.
Despite people talking about chaos magic. So let's dive in here on your first night where you were free to watch whatever you like. What'd you go with?
So I was choosing between Groundhog Day and North by Northwest.
Oh, interesting.
Two classics.
And very different movies.
Yeah.
Were you a movie kid? Were you renting stuff or like?
I was renting stuff. Yeah, I thought, you know, back in high school, I was really, really into photography. And I thought I wanted to be like a cinematographer. And I even took these like film classes and was like made my own shorts using like Super 8 film. And I would like edit them together with like splice it, you know, like physically splicing film together and stuff. And so, yeah, I was a film kid, and I was like really into kind of like the indie movies and the classics. I I think in college even, I went to Columbia and I was in the film program for a little bit before I switched to writing and English. And I remember writing a paper about North by Northwest, but I think it was just on the credit sequence of North by Northwest. And I don't remember what I said, but I'm sure it was brilliant.
I'm sure. Yeah. I think was that a Saul Bass credit sequence, I think. But were you going to like the Coolidge Corner and the Brattle and stuff, or were you more like renting movies?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Coolidge Corner, Brattle, Coolidge Corner midnight movies. I met my like first serious boyfriend at the screening of Chuck and Buck at Coolidge Corner.
Not a date movie. Not a great date movie. Yeah, I think, you know, I try not to take for granted the fact that we grew up with both of those theaters at like easily accessible, because there's so many experiences and things I never would have seen.
Oh, yeah. And also the Harvard Film Forum. Yes. They had amazing movies. I remember seeing there's this Canadian filmmaker, Adam McGoyam, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. And I remember they were like, it was a snowstorm and like getting kind of snowed in at one of his movies. And I was like, it was just kind of magical. I remember that.
Did he do Thin Blue Line? Something else like what's the one?
Araram was the name of
yes.
His movies.
And there's one about
Ararat, I think, actually.
There's one about like strippers that he did as well that I think was like his big studio movie. I can't remember, but yeah, it felt like special. They'd have the filmmakers come and like, you know, not being in New York or LA and having access to that was unbelievable. Like I think I saw John Waters speak about 20 times before I was 18, and that was like probably why I do stand up. Like we just didn't have access to that. Yeah, I feel like I don't know what I'd pick there between Groundhog Day and North by Northwest. I guess that's a mood thing. Because you'd really have to figure out what you wanted to do there. I do want to mention there's a show on that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. And it's a Jesus show, because we always have to have a Jesus show. And it was, you know, Highway to Heaven and then Touched by an Angel. But this was a show called Early Edition.
Yes.
Do you remember that show?
Yes.
So this was the guy, he gets tomorrow's paper. And
yes,
it was normally pretty kind of heartwarming, and, you know, there wasn't a lot of peril on Early Edition. But I bring up this episode because this particular episode on this night in February 1997 is Gary becomes a target when he uncovers new facts about JFK's assassination.
Wow.
I just have to imagine in the writer's room, there was like one JFK obsessed writer who just kept pitching that. They're like, he helps some orphans save the orphanage, or like an old lady discovers her love of Christmas, and this guy's like, he finds out the truth about JFK's assassination. What a weird episode. Funny. Yeah, that's yet another show that has not sadly found its audience.
Yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't been remade somehow.
It's a cool premise.
Yeah, seeing the future. Who wouldn't want that? And then him having, you know, like a savior complex and feeling like he has to do something about it every time. Like, how exhausting.
Oh, yeah. And you're not given any more direction than the entire paper. Like, just thinking of all the tragedy in one day's paper, like, which ones are you going to try and do anything about?
Yeah. Like, which puppies will you save?
Right. Yeah, I always would joke that it'd be funny if the guy was just into the comics and didn't even bother to read the rest of the paper and was like, oh, The Far Side? Yeah, I got that yesterday. Do want to mention, pat myself in the back also that night, there's a show called Who Makes You Laugh 2? And two of the people in the ad I've had on the show, Tom Arnold and Janine Garofalo.
Oh, cool.
I just had to mention it. So that's your Saturday. What about your Sunday?
Okay, so my Sunday was, I'm trying to figure this out. I think most of these would have been reruns. Well, some of them would have been reruns. So I picked Third Rock from the Sun and The Simpsons, which I think share a slot. And I think if it was a rerun of The Simpsons, I would have kind of like gone back and forth maybe during commercials, but I would have probably privileged The Simpsons over Third Rock from the Sun. And then Touched by an Angel / King of the Hill. I would probably go back and forth between those. Touched by an Angel would be like something I could definitely watch during commercial breaks because I would not need like any sort of context for it. And then Mad About You and Seinfeld would have been things I definitely would have watched back in the day.
Again, very different shows you're switching between. Like thinking of just cutting together King of the Hill and Touched by an Angel. And like the way your brain is processing things back and forth is a little bit different. But, you know, hey, if you can do it, by all means. Third Rock from the Sun I could never get into and I always wanted to, but it would seem like just too goofy for me.
Just like the concept of aliens and...
I mean, I like the concept, but I think it was just like comedically very broad, which is ridiculous because I would have been 17 and the fact that a 17 would be like, oh, this is far too broad for me. But I was like, you know, The Simpsons would have been, you know, as a much more heady thing, even though it can be kind of silly. And King of the Hill, what a great show.
Is it still on? No,
I think I think they've done some specials or they've brought some stuff back every so often for whatever reason. And you weren't an X-Files, so you're like mostly comedies here. You're a comedy person.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I feel like I did not watch a lot of... Yeah, I definitely preferred watching comedies. I feel like I also... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I were to write something, it would definitely be like dark. I think it would have an element of humor, but you know, I'm not like a comedian. But like in terms of what I like to consume, I think I like consume a lot more comedy than dark dramas.
I mean, that makes sense. There's comedy in your writing. It's, you know, there's definitely funny stuff in there. But just like, I wouldn't peg you as a sitcom person. That's, you know, like, I'd be like, oh, The Simpsons, that makes sense. But Mad About You is a show that I think there's probably 3 underrated 90s shows that I always talk about, and it's Mad About You, News Radio, and Spin City. I think those 3 shows hold up really well. They're very funny. I find them having way more rewatchability than even like Seinfeld. And, you know, Mad About You is great because they're just character shows, and they're just like dialogue and characters. And, you know, as great as Seinfeld was, I find I don't enjoy it as much when it's on when I rewatch it because so much of the humor is based around like surprise or like plot twists.
Yeah, it is funny. I feel like Seinfeld, when I've watched it recently, I'm like, it doesn't like always hold up that much. And then with Mad About You, I was on the plane and they rebooted it, I guess.
Yeah. I haven't watched it. Was it good? Yeah, that's what I got the impression of.
I don't know. I mean, I really liked the original. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, reboots, especially of comedies. I think The Conners works really well and feels like Roseanne. But I can't really think of any others that managed to pull that off.
Yeah.
I do want to mention, just because this stuck out to me, Silk Stockings is on at 9:00 on USA Network, and the show description is, this is like Mad Libs, a bisexual fitness club owner is murdered.
Oh my gosh. That sounds so good. I don't think I've ever seen Silk Stockings, but I remember the ads for it.
Oh, yeah. They would be like, they started on CBS and they had this late night TV campaign that they called It's Too Hot to Sleep. And then it went there. And then, because I mentioned on the show a lot, Baywatch Nights is on that night. And I don't know if you know what Baywatch Nights is.
No, what is it?
So you know Baywatch, of course.
Yes.
They decided to do a spin-off of Baywatch where Mitch, David Hasselhoff, is a detective at nighttime.
Wow.
But it's better in that after the first season, which was not successful, they changed things around. So the second season, he's not just a detective, he hunts monsters.
What?
Yeah. Because X-Files.
Like ocean monsters?
Sometimes.
Or is it just like not even ocean related?
Anything. It's not really even ocean related. Like this particular episode is Mitch, Ryan, and a doctor hit the streets to find Donna, who begins to experience murderous urges after coming in contact with the blood of a serial killer.
Oh my God.
Like vampire. It was insane. Completely insane. Love it. Monday, what are you doing?
Okay, so for the first slot, I picked Melrose Place and Seventh Heaven. I did not watch either of those shows, I should say. But I feel like they're both, like, I would probably be kind of hate watching them, to be perfectly honest. Or I don't know about Melrose Place. I didn't watch it enough, but like Seventh Heaven was just so corny. I would have probably gotten a kick out of it. And then after that, it's Poirot.
It's like a palate cleanser with a little bit of class with Poirot.
Yeah. I did love watching like Mystery as a kid.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed because it had the Edward Gorey opening. So as a kid, I was like, this is going to be awesome. And then it wasn't an animated show in the style of Edward Gorey, which would have been amazing.
That's true. That it was like always a little bit of a misdirect.
But were you aware when you were growing up that they were shooting like the intros to Mystery like a couple miles from where you lived at GBH?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. So, they'd have Vincent Price hosted a few, but it would switch. I think the current one's Alan Cumming hosts it. But yeah, they'd film all the openings at GBH for like the year in 2 days. And
wow.
Yeah. And of course, the French Chef was shot there as well.
That's so cool. I wish I'd known.
Yeah. So that hate watching makes sense there. I think, earlier in the evening. Have you seen any of the Poirot movies, the Kenneth Branagh ones, the new ones?
I feel like I saw maybe one. The one before the last one. Which one was that? Did it involve a train or something?
Yes. Yeah. It was the train one. One was a boat, one was a train. I thought they were pretty good.
It was fun. I watched it with my daughter.
Was she scared? Like, because there was some of that was a little bit scary.
She was not scared, no.
Okay.
She's pretty stone cold.
You keep testing her and showing her Stranger and Stranger Things.
She's like, I've never seen her cry in a movie ever.
I'm not a parent, but if I could I recommend Baywatch Nights to you to show her?
She might like that.
That might make her cry.
That sounds pretty exciting.
Might disturb her a little bit.
Maybe.
There's a ridiculous made-for-TV movie on this night with Morgan Fairchild with one of the best ridiculous made-for-TV movie titles, Into the Arms of Danger, which really could be about anything, but I just like that title. Tuesday, what'd you do?
So I have Roseanne / Jerry Springer.
Of a theme.
I did love Roseanne, and I did love Jerry Springer, so I think I would have, been going back and forth.
Very different depictions of poverty.
That's a good point. I mean, I loved, I just, loved, trashy talk shows, basically.
Jenny Jones.
I don't even think Dr. Phil was, on yet. But, yeah, just all of those kind of daytime. Like, if I was sick and at home and nobody was monitoring me, there was, a lot of Jerry Springer happening.
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry, we had the boom in the 90s. There was literally 35 daytime talk shows. It was Gordon Elliott, Lisa Gibbons, Tempest Bledsoe. We had Richard Bay. There was so many, and they kept trying to out sleaze each other.
But you can't out sleaze Jerry Springer. It's just,
you really can't.
I don't think it's possible.
No, he was in local government.
Yeah, he was the best. So then I don't know. I wrote State of the Union address, which I'm would I have watched it? I don't know. But maybe. I would have dipped in, I guess. For
Clinton's second State of the Union, or second term State of the Union, I'd be curious now to look at what this was like then, just to compare and contrast to the dystopian future we live in. But I just remember being so mad as a kid when that stuff would come on. And it would interrupt everything, and I'd be furious.
I think I probably would have been assigned to watch it in school or something.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I would have probably watched it for that reason.
I forgot they would make it, we'd have to write a paper on it, or the debates and that kind of stuff when we were in school. Mm-hmm. No wonder I was mad.
Yeah.
Anything else on Tuesday, or is that's the whole night, maybe State of the Union?
I think that's the whole night, yeah. I can't top State of the Union.
There's a very short-lived show on called Burning Zone that's a weird future set in this weird plague kind of show that was only on for one season. But again, this show description warrants reading. Haley becomes involved with a rock star whose doctor also treated two athletes whose bones suddenly disintegrated.
What? Oh my God.
Again, I feel writing for shows in the 90s was just a good gig.
Oh my God, yeah.
You could really...
What a dream.
Yeah. And then there's an ad for a USA original movie called Buried Alive 2. Not T-O-O, like
Sounds
Teen Wolf.
promising.
Ally Sheedy, Tim Matheson, who stars and directs. And the picture's a woman's hand coming out of a grave, and it says, her cheating husband poisoned her and buried her, but he forgot one thing, to kill her. And then it says, is 800 pounds of topsoil considered grounds for divorce? It's the worst joke.
Oh my God. I love Ally Sheedy. That's very funny.
She's awesome. I love her. Yeah, she's back to acting again. She had quit for a while and was living in New York. But yeah, I'll watch her in anything. Like, she's great in anything.
She was in High Art, right?
Yeah, I think around this time that was like considered her like comeback, where they were like, she's doing these indie movies now.
She was really
Yeah,
good.
imagine being able to pull off Short Circuit and High Art.
I can't. Such versatility, range.
It's true. So Wednesday, what'd you do?
So I picked Nanny, The Nanny, Beverly Hills 90210, and Party of Five.
I had to go Party of Five, given what we discussed earlier. The Nanny's an interesting choice.
You know, I was like sick with COVID, I think for like the second time in bed, and I rewatched like all of The Nanny, and I don't know, it was like very comforting. I don't think I was watching it that much like back in the day, really, but like something about watching it now was like, I don't even know why it was so comforting, but it was like deeply comforting.
I believe it. And I can't believe this episode, though. I didn't know this was a thing. Fran exalts her therapist, played by Spalding Gray.
I'm so glad I picked this. I love Spalding Gray.
I had no recollection of Spalding Gray being on The Nanny.
That's awesome.
I remember seeing Swimming to Cambodia at the Brattle, I think, and he spoke about it because I think he went to Harvard or he's from the area or something like that, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I was a big fan of him too. I don't know if I'd ever seen him or just. I think I've only seen him in his movies. I don't think I've ever seen him. I don't think I had ever seen him live. Yeah, I don't know, when did he die? I think maybe by the time I was seeing his stuff, he was already dead. I
think it was early 2000s or late 90s. But yeah, probably not too long after he was on The Nanny. I don't think it's related.
Yeah. When I 97, I would have been in 9th grade. So
you weren't hanging out with the people seeing Spalding Gray live.
Maybe I was, actually. I feel like I was like a cooler 9th grader than I am an adult. That is like 100% true.
I think the best of us were.
Yeah.
You like did it, got it out of the way, don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So Spalding Gray on that, the Miss USA pageants on that night. Party of Five, yep, we got Scott Wolf. And they were called the Salingers. In a tribute to JD, which I imagine is like a really ham-fisted tribute to JD. I
think so, yeah. I think like, I was like, these people get me. They're great.
It's a JD Salinger and they're like, angsty, yeah. I did love Jennifer Love Hewitt.
What was on that episode? I'm going to see if I can remember.
The Party of Five that night is, after a disastrous night with Bailey at a club, Sarah compares notes with Julia and discovers she's not only worried about him. Meanwhile, Grace feels out of place staying at the Salingers and shopping in a new neighborhood, and Claudia tries to warm to Grace by volunteering with office work.
Okay, I feel like that's kind of hard to parse.
Yeah, I'm not hooked. If I was a new viewer, I don't think that description would get me to tune in. Oh, wait a minute, office work. I think I'm going with Drew Carey that night, just from that description.
I'm sure it was a moving episode.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of tears. Thursday, what'd you do?
Okay, so I have Friends. I have the second half of Murder, She Wrote. I have Seinfeld, because I'm pretty sure Thursday night would be like when the Seinfeld episodes would, like the new episodes would come out. Right? Is that right?
Yep.
And then I have no idea what this is, but the title sounded intriguing. The Cat from Outer Space.
Oh, yes. This is a Disney film. Let me see if it's the original or the remake, of which there was one, if not two. Where is it here? Cat from Outer Space. The original was when Disney... Yes, this is the original, the Ken Barry one from early 70s or late 60s. TV Guide only gives it 2 stars. This is a shock.
Wow.
But on the same page, Beverly Hills Cop 3 is on. They also only give that 2 stars. So if you're TV Guide, Beverly Hills Cop 3, Cat from Outer Space, same quality of film.
What do they know?
And the movie, Cat from Outer Space, is about a cat from outer space.
Oh.
It's all in the title. This guy, it has a magic necklace. It's very 70s live action Disney, but not scary, good live action Disney like Escape to Witch Mountain and Watcher in the Woods.
Well, I think like a live action with a cat would have been like probably good enough for me.
I have difficulty watching live action animal movies from like pre-1990 because I just imagine the animals were just like horrifically abused. But that's just my brain.
And then someone had told me for Murder, She Wrote, there's like an exact minute moment where like people can consistently kind of like know who the killer was or whatever. And I do remember watching like Murder, She Wrote at my grandmother's house. And it was just like very comforting. And when I was just recently in Mendocino, where I think they filmed the like opening with the crashing waves and stuff, even though it's like set in Maine, I think they filmed it in Mendocino.
Yeah.
And it was just, it really just gave me chills just being like, oh, I'm in this beautiful, like, natural wonder place, but like my frame of reference is definitely like I'm in the opening of Murder, She Wrote.
But as a writer, you weren't tempted to break out the typewriter and bust out a mystery?
I feel like I was tempted. I was like, this place it's so beautiful, it's so cozy. I would like love to solve mysteries and type them out.
I do miss the golden age of cute murder that we had with the shows like that, where it was just like there was no autopsy. It was just like people clutched themselves and fell over.
I loved that too. Yeah, it was like not lurid at all.
Which is weird. Like, part of me in hindsight is like, maybe it should have been a little bit so we could know that murder was like not that fun.
Yeah, like why is murder giving me such a cozy feeling, I guess? It's like a weird
Let's get a blanket
combo.
and a cup of tea and watch this old lady solve someone's horrific murder.
You're right. That's weird. That is a weird thing.
But, I agree with you. So they managed to really something about it. Final night of the week, Friday night. What are you doing?
Okay, so I was in 9th grade. I think like there's no chance that I wouldn't have been watching TGIF. But I wasn't a fan of the first show, so I would just start at Boy Meets World, Sabrina, Clueless, definitely. And then I'd probably be watching like MTV instead of the Urkel show.
You weren't a Family Matters Urkel.
It just drove me crazy. Like I really hated Family Matters. I just couldn't handle
really
it.
Annoying.
I loved Sister Sister, which for some reason wasn't on. Maybe it came on later. Because that was a TGIF show. Yeah,
it switched a lot. 97, like Full House had ended the season before that. And I think this was the last season of Family Matters. So this is when TGIF started to shift to be like all the sort of magical shows. So you had Sabrina. There was also like Migo and something like Clueless maybe. But there was another show that had like Teen Angel, I think was one of them. It was like stuff like that was like a little more weird. And Boy Meets World.
Well, I don't remember those.
You're lucky.
I remember Sister Sister, which was like with the twins.
Yes. One of whom hosts a cooking show now. I think that was UPN. And their little brother had that show Smart Guy.
Oh, fun. I had always wanted a twin.
Are you an only child or do you have siblings in general?
I have a brother, but he's 14 years younger than me, so not a twin.
No.
But he's great. But yeah, I always wanted a twin.
Have you ever known twins?
I didn't. Like, I just was so, like, the idea, I think because even though I wasn't an only child for, like, 14 years, I was an only child. Yeah. And so I think it, like, seemed so appealing to have just, like, a best friend that was always there. And, I don't think I knew any. And, like, also, if they looked exactly like you, like, that just seemed, like, very exciting. I remember, like, having friends where we would pretend to be twins and we would just, like, dress the same, but we didn't look anything alike. So it wasn't we didn't really like trick anybody, but yeah, like that desire was strong.
I think you're like, oh, I don't want to do magic because it tricks people, but goddamn, if I was a twin, we would just pull so many capers.
For sure, yeah. Just constantly pretending to be each other, I think. I mean, to get to be someone else would be fun.
Without having to do anything physically.
Yeah.
Just by saying it, be like, no, I'm a different person than that. And then being like, oh, okay. No one questioning it. I remember when I lived in Somerville, the guy on the first floor, like, damaged the builder. Like, he went nuts and, I don't know, he punched holes in the walls or something. And he literally tried to tell the landlord it was his twin brother. It was the only time I've seen a real person try to use that excuse.
Did he have a twin brother?
Nope. He just went for it. He's like, you know what? Let's see if it works.
Oh my
It
God,
didn't.
amazing.
Also, I'm shocked by this. On at the same time, Unsolved Mysteries is on, and it's a special Nirvana's Kurt Cobain, Suicide or Murder, Tonight, Startling New Evidence, presented by Robert Stack. I can't imagine Robert Stack being like, Nirvana.
Oh my God, I was obsessed with Nirvana. That was like probably the height of my obsession with Nirvana. So I think maybe, yeah, I don't know how I missed that. I definitely would want to watch that.
I'm going to have to track
And I
that
also
down.
liked Unsolved Mysteries too.
I was going to ask that because weirdly, the psychic stuff in the new book, I kept thinking of Unsolved Mysteries.
As a kid, like my favorite, like in terms of like, it was like the most titillating, but it gave me nightmares and I was so scared, was like America's Most Wanted with like the reenactments.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I think of like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted as like kind of in the same genre. And it's funny because like as an adult, I don't feel like I consume a lot of true crime at all. But like as a kid, I think because it like just scares me too much. And it's just like, it's unpleasant. Like I would say like I like stuff about cults, but like that's the only kind of sub genre in true crime that I like can handle. But like as a kid, I loved like the most garish, like horrific America's Most Wanted stuff, and it scared me so much. And it was like I couldn't get enough of it.
I still love it. It's so over the top and ridiculous, and the reenactments are so bad. Like right now, my brain is going through how bad whoever they got to play Kurt Cobain in the reenactments must have been. Like how hilarious.
Oh my God.
These have to be. But I mention it all the time. My favorite Unsolved Mysteries ever was the one about the haunted bunk bed in Long Island.
What?
This family bought a haunted bunk bed, and
Oh no.
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing that anyone presented that with a straight face like it was a real thing.
What happened in the bunk bed?
So it was these Long Island people who were super Long Islandy, and they were like, we got it on clearance, this bunk bed, and my kid was getting scared, and the radio went on, and I went in the room, and the bunk bed was engulfed in fire. It was a ghost fire, and there was a face, and it was just like this stuff that I'm like, are you drinking? Like, clearly either made up or this person was drunk, but they reenacted exactly as told, and
Wow.
like, we had to get out of the house because of the bunk bed. Oh, the haunted bunk bed. I think it's right here. The Unsolved Mysteries soundtrack. Not a setup. This was right within grabbing range of me. Right next to my desk. Because it's necessary for me to have that. That is the week. Let me see if there are cheers and jeers that we can wrap up with. Is there anything you watch now, like as a not having been able to watch a lot as a kid, where there shows you had to catch up on, or felt like you need to, as an adult, like go back and watch?
I do feel like now sometimes when I just like turn on regular TV, we don't have cable and it's just like whatever is network TV, it's like so fun to watch it. And we were watching it, like it's just such a rare treat. So I was like showing it to my daughter and she was just like, what is this? Like it's just like such a foreign concept. Like there's just stuff playing, like, and you're not starting at the beginning of it. It just, you come into the middle of some like random melodrama from the 70s and like somebody gets like shot and then it goes to like these pharmaceutical commercials. Like,
Yes.
like it's just a very surreal sort of experience. So I feel like that's really fun.
Yeah, looking at it through those eyes is so bizarre, being like, so it could just be on even if no one was watching it? It's just there?
Yeah, like she finds it very confusing, like how any of this would work. But in terms of like shows that I watch now, I feel like most of the shows I watch now are probably like streaming shows or like HBO shows. I don't know that I've like gone back to watch stuff. Well, I guess the Nanny when I was sick.
But you were infirm, so that that
was very cozy.
Extenuating circumstances. You went with the Nanny instead of cozy murder, but I understand. You got to save something for if you're sicker at some point. So to wrap up here, I want to read you the cheers and jeers from this week, February 7, 1997. TV Guide is not just informative, it has opinions, and it cheers and jeers every week. These are unsigned, so TV Guide likes to get super bitchy on them, which is very fun. This is a jeer-heavy week. We have 3 jeers and 2 cheers. So I'll start with a cheer. Let's see if we agree or disagree with this one. Cheers to the ecumenical spirit. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. We've enjoyed the entire series of commercials for Snickers with football themes and the tagline, not going anywhere for a while, but the second one is still our favorite. An exasperated coach stands in the locker room explaining that there will be some modifications to the pregame team prayer. In short order, a priest, a rabbi, and a Native American medicine man step up to offer benedictions. Then, in a sight gag worthy of Mel Brooks, the camera pans down a long line of robed religious figures, Buddhist, Greek Orthodox, Hare Krishna, that extends all the way into the corridor. Stay in line, no pushing, barks the coach. This candy commercial really tickles our palate. That sounds like just designed to offend people.
Wow.
Wow. I don't remember that, but okay.
Like the joke, just to be clear, the joke is that there are many religions, right? That's like the punchline.
And it's going to take a while.
Many religions exist.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Like too many, and it's annoying because you can't, you might as well have a Snickers because you got to go through all these religions.
Right.
Again, would have liked to have seen the pitch meeting to the Snickers Corporation by that ad company. Like, okay. And it's a priest and a rabbi. I'm not done. They just keep going through all the religions. Wow. Jeers to banalities. It'd be great if that was the whole thing, but it's not. The news magazine Dateline NBC featured a, quote, question of the week, a nationwide poll on timely and significant topics. So what have the momentous hot button issues been lately? The future of Social Security? Aviation safety? Nope. Try... what do you do if a friend gives you a present you hate? And what is your least favorite part of winter? Sheesh, Dateline, get with it. We've heard more provocative questions on Family Feud.
Harsh.
Yeah, what a preview of the future, though. That's like every clickbait article are those questions. Oh, Dateline was ahead of the curve there. All right. Cheers to spoofs, however unsanitary. After ABC was sued by the Food Lion supermarket chain for a 1992 Primetime Live hidden camera report, Comedy Central turned the buffet tables on the network. Correspondent Brian Unger smuggled a camera into the ABC cafeteria and captured instances of various dressings dribbled outside their containers on the salad bar and other culinary outrages. The shocking footage was shown on The Daily Show. That's giving ABC a taste of its own vinaigrette. Oh, The Daily Show. The pre-Jon Stewart Daily Show.
I was going to say, I was so surprised to hear that The Daily Show existed pre-Jon Stewart.
Yeah, it was Craig Kilborn. People don't remember.
Right.
Yeah, and it was very different. 2 more jeers. Jeers. Oh, God. Jeers to a chesty conceit. An episode of CBS's Orleans began with a scene obviously shot from the point of view of a woman's bosom, which showed Judge Charbonnet, Larry Hagman, answering the door, staring down and marveling, quote, "My, those are lovely. Are they real? I must say those are the nicest pair I've seen in years." We then flashed to a news anchor in an impossibly revealing gown who explained that the footage we had just seen was taken with her, quote, cleavage cam. We know Orleans is trying for a risque tone, but this tacky opener was not only preposterous, it was downright vulgar.
Wow.
That does not... for a second, I don't recall that show at all, but I'm like, oh, is the joke going to be that he was talking about, I don't know, she's holding a watermelon, like something, but I'm like, no, that's No, that's exactly what it was.
I don't remember that show either.
No, Larry Hagman. My God, Larry. From Dallas to cleavage camps. And finally, jeers to suspicious minds. During an appearance on The Rosie O'Donnell Show, Jamie Lee Curtis displayed glossies of the newest addition to her family, related how her clan spent Christmas, and then, in a jarring revelation, smugly explained that she tutors her kids not to believe in Santa Claus. She then repeatedly attempted to impugn the very existence of jolly old Saint Nick. Fortunately, Rosie was there to defend our Yuletide benefactor, cutting off and contradicting Curtis every time the actress attempted to renew her heresy. We have to say that for a children's book author and a mother of two, Mrs. Curtis, you're awfully grinchy. So it was a daytime show. You really can't do that.
Yeah, people don't like that, I hear.
No. I remember when I found out there was no Santa, it was my neighbor. They're like the Murphys. They had like 6 kids, Murphys, no surprise. But I was like in their kitchen before school one day, and their older son, who was like a teenager, was like, yeah, Santa's not real, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally know that, but I didn't. Maybe 7 or 8, I'm thinking.
But you had to like pretend and then cry separately later.
Like, totally. I can't believe there's people that think he's real. It's dumb. And then go home and be like, oh my God, he's played it cool. He didn't know I didn't know. But I would have liked to have found out from Jamie Lee Curtis, to be honest with you.
Seems like a gentler way.
Yeah. Are there any shows your kid watches that you watch that you're like are forced to watch, or that you are surprised you like?
Well, lately she's been watching this like mystery type of show, like this kid detective type of show where the kids all have like really thick New Zealand accents.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what it is, but I'm like into it. And then she was like, for a while, just like, I guess she still is like really into these Disney sitcoms from like the early aughts. I don't know how she discovered them. Like they're all kind of like after when I would have, watched stuff like iCarly kind of stuff. And these types of those types of sitcoms. And it was so funny because I was reading Jeanette McCurdy, I think I'm saying her name right, her like memoir called I'm Glad That My Mother Is Dead.
Oh, glad my mom died. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad my mom died. I was like, and Faye, my daughter was like super into that show, and I was like reading her like excerpts of just like her complaints about what that show was like.
Oh, this is fun, huh? Well, let me tell you something.
Yeah. Like this is what it was actually like. So
here's the reality. Oh, you like the Wizards of Waverly Place? Well, let me tell you something. Here's some horrors. That's what parents are for.
yeah.
Well, I love the book. People should go out and get it. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been so great to talk to you.
It's been so great to chat. Thank you for having me
on. Cozy Murder with Katya. I'd watch that show or read that book or whatever that is. Again, Newtonville Books on the 21st. You can go. She's doing an event. You can buy the book, you can get it signed, or you can go to Skylight Books in LA. I put the links in all the things here. I don't have a book, but you can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com, or on all the social media at Kenneth W. Reed, or become a patron. Little as $1 a month. It is very helpful to year 11 of the show, or $5 a month. You would have gotten a PDF of this week's TV guide that we looked at with a hunky, oiled up Kevin Sorbo on the cover. Worth it for that alone. I mean, you can put that in your locker. I'm not telling you what to put in your locker or that you even need a locker, but if you have one and you needed a pin-up, this'll do it. Anyway, buy her book. Let me know what you thought after you read it, and I'll be here next week, and I hope you will too, for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
I just assumed she was like married to a magician or something.